Welcome to RotoWire, Fantasy Football Live, coming at you 5 days a week, 11 a.m. Eastern. But if you miss it, you can always catch the replay on RotoWire YouTube Saturday. So that means we have John Ryan with us to get some gambling winners. John has consistently been giving us winners on the show. If you've been following him here, you've been making money. We know John's 65% winner over many, many years. Those 10-unit plays win at about 68% level. Yeah, they lose 32% of the time, but hey, it's gambling, and John is way above the pack. John gives you very detailed rationale and reasoning. He gives you betting trends. He teaches you to be a smarter gambler. Like I tell you, always be careful who you're getting your gambling advice from. John has been a professional gambler for almost 3 full decades. So you've come to the right place if you want some gambling information. John Ryan, happy week 13.
Thank you very much, Jim, for that introduction. And also let everybody know that you're the GOAT, in my opinion, in DFS and player identification. It's helped a lot of my models and my lineups to be profitable. A lot of times they wouldn't have cashed, and through your help, they definitely have. So you're the number one resource in DFS to go to for everybody to be better DFS people.
I appreciate you, John. We're two grinders just working hard and doing our best, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna get into some games here. We'll do the usual drill. John will break down a game. I'll give some DFS plays. John will give another game. I'll give more DFS, and John will finish up with a third winner. John, let's start out. Everybody is pumped for the 49ers against the Eagles. So the 49ers had that 3-game losing streak. And look, all teams have injuries, but this is a stars and scrubs roster. When they got Debo back, when they got Trent Williams back, this team has been a juggernaut. Almost impossible to stop on offense. Defensively, when they added Chase Young and even Randy Gregory to that pass rush, now their run defenders are freed up to do more. That defense is playing better. The Eagles, they just win games. They've lost one all year. They may not have looked as great as they did last year, but the point totals are there. They are without Dallas Goedert. He's doubtful for this game. They don't expect him. He was practicing. He was close, but apparently not close enough. Other than that, both teams come in relatively healthy. John, how are you breaking this game down?
Well, earlier in the week, I was really, really hot on the San Francisco 49ers. It's just a terrible situation for the Eagles this week. They're coming off of a 3-game gauntlet, but they have 3 more top teams to play yet, including Seattle next week, and then the rematch of the Dallas Cowboys, who they beat in the first game of this 6-game gauntlet. And I don't think any team has played more resiliently than the Eagles. They have 4 wins this year, Jim, as you know, trailing by double digits in the second half.
Yes.
They also have 4 wins where they got outstatted in the game as well. And the league leader is the Pittsburgh Steelers with 6. And through 12 weeks, that matches the most wins getting outstatted in the box scores since 1990. Ooh. So the Steelers actually are in a position to make the playoffs because I researched it, and every team that has done this has been in the playoffs and advanced. None of them made it to the Super Bowl, but they made it to the playoffs and normally advanced past the wild card game. So don't underrate Pittsburgh Steelers either, and don't think that the Eagles are by any stretch of the imagination playing with smoke and mirrors. The problem I have with backing the 49ers, as much as I wanted to, is everybody thinks they're going to blow them out. They're playing with revenge from last year's playoff loss. They're this, they're that. They have the better team. They have the better offense. They have the better defense against the Eagles. And on paper, that's right. But there's a part of this Eagles team where the heart and soul of that team just refuses to lose. Jalen Hurts has lost 2 games in his NFL career during the regular season. I think he's 28-2 now. So that makes me a little cautious, given that the betting public is, 75% of them are on the 49ers. But I will be betting the 49ers nonetheless. It just might not be an 8-unit amount. But I do have a great betting system, Jim, to share with you that supports this. We're going to bet on favorites that have won 3 of their last 4 games. The 49ers have won 3 consecutive games off their bye. And the dog has won 8 or more of their last 10 games. And it's hard for me to even think of Philadelphia as a home dog, let alone an underdog at all. But that simple set of 2 parameters has gone 53-18 straight up, 49-20 against the spread, 71.2% since 2004. And there's more, of course, Jim. If that dog has won 9 or more of their last 10 games, 21-4 straight up are those road favorites. 84%, 19-4-2, 83% also against the spread. So I think one thing you can do here, where in game, if the Eagles get out to a fast start and take the lead of 7 or 10-0, that's when I'm going to be very hot on the 49ers to get it at plus money, even on the money line, with a little bit more than pizza money on that opportunity should that present itself.
Like I tell you, John, that's how John teaches you to be a better gambler, the in-game betting strategy. Like John said, if you're out for the day and you're not watching the game and that's not a possibility, fine. But if that is a possibility, to be cognizant of those betting advantages ends up potentially making you more money. Now, when we look at this game from an NFL standpoint, the loss of Dallas Goedert is huge because the problem in defending them when they're at full strength is you have A.J. Brown, you have Devontae Smith, and you have Dallas Goedert. And if you sell out too much in any one, the other two can roast you. And without Goddard, we've seen the last couple of weeks, A.J. Brown has seen a lot more attention than usual, hasn't really gone off in those games. Now, Devontae Smith has picked up some slack. But this 49ers team, this is much better than that depleted Bills defense. And this is a defense that could take it to them. So I'm interested to see how the Eagles get about moving the ball. And the 49ers earlier in the year, they were weaker against the run. But I mentioned when they brought in the extra pass rushing help, now the problem is the offensive line is to be so worried about who to double. You got Hargrave inside, Armstead inside. You've got Nick Bosa. You've got Chase Young and rotational Randy Gregory. It's a nightmare. So now the linebackers are freed up to play better run defense. We've seen a better run defense. So again, very excited, John, for this game. John is taking the 49ers. Are you getting it right now at 3 or is it 2? Some markets are 2.5. What are you seeing right now? 3 still? You're on mute, I believe. All right, John's on mute, so I'm going to move to some DFS. All right, so
sorry about that. I'm seeing 3.
3. Okay, perfect. Yep. John, last thing. If do you expect this line before kickoff to go in either direction, half a point?
I do. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see the money start coming in on the Eagles. Now, if that betting percentage that I mentioned of 76% comes down to say 65%, then my appetite for the 49ers increases quite a bit. I'm just a little leery of joining the herd here, even though it's pros and joes, as we like to say, on the 49ers. It just might be the perfect storm for everybody to be right, and everybody takes money from the books. But I'm just being a little cautious at this point.
Exactly. All right. So DFS plays, quarterbacks. So look, Tua Tagovailoa. I don't give you layups every week, but sometimes we got to look at these. He's 7,900 at Washington. Now, Tua, when he plays cupcake opponents, he normally throws about 300 yards, normally 2 to 3 touchdowns. And Washington has been very bad against the pass, 2.3 touchdowns per game. 277 pass yards for him. This is a bad defense, and they haven't had a horrific schedule. So this is one that should be a very easy matchup. They're better against the run than the pass. They're not a shutdown run defense, but they definitely encourage you to pass. And I keep saying, since trading away Montez Sweat and Chase Young, you can look at their season-long factors. Their pass rush is not a factor right now. And so it's an easy day for Tua to get the ball out with timing and anticipation with not much worry about much pressure. Brock Purdy may be my favorite play on the board, though. I go price-wise down. Brock Purdy, 6,100 in that Philly game. Now, Brock Purdy, 296 or more yards in 3 of his last 4 games. 3 touchdowns in 2 of his last 3. Now, Philadelphia, we already know the drill. They're one of the best run defenses in the league. I know Kansas City got to them in the first half a couple weeks ago, but that's because they came into the game thinking Andy Reid would want to throw, and they just moved people in the pass coverage. And then Andy Reid tried to fool them, and he lost the game because of it. And he ran in the first half, and then Philly adjusted in the second, took away to run. Anyway, you don't run on Philly with much success. So what does that mean for Brock Purdy? Okay, so who am I going to throw to? Let's see. Do I throw to McCaffrey out of the backfield? Do I throw to Debo? Do I throw to my outside receiver, Ayuk? Do I throw to Kittle? All of them are mismatches. The Eagles' corners are not playing at the level they played last year. The middle of the field is a sieve. You could get to them very easily. So That's why I'm reluctant to identify which receiver is going to have the massive game. But Purdy is the one, regardless who gets it. For DFS, he's the one. And you could go naked with him in this one if you're worried about picking which receiver. I'm going to give you one tip later who you might go GPP with him. But in a cash game, Purdy, I might fly him naked there. Gardner Minshew is 5,300 at Tennessee. Now, recently in two of his last 3 games, he's had a pretty tough schedule. He did have the Tampa game, which was better, but it's basically been a fairly tough schedule. Now, Tennessee's what we call a pass funnel defense. They're not the elite run defense they were last year, but they're still well above average. And Zach Moss is fine here, but you're encouraged to throw against Tennessee. The pass rush hasn't been great. Ryan Kelly, the center, is back for Indy, which helps their offensive line. And this is a game. Remember, Tennessee has given up an average of 270 yards, 2 touchdowns to Baker Mayfield and Trevor Lawrence, and Lawrence hasn't been playing at a lights out level. So Minshew should have a solid game, and he always runs for a little bit too. Now, hold your nose on this one. This is a GPP punt play, but I can make a case. 4,600. Joe Flacco. Did I just say Joe Flacco? But here's the deal. All right. The Rams are a good run defense. They can't cover. They have no ability to cover. And the pass rush, obviously, they have Aaron Donald and Byron Young. Very good. I still say the Browns line is fine. Jack Conklin's been out almost all year, the right tackle. They've had DeJuan Jones has been capable. The left tackle position, they have a backup there as well. But the interior line is fine. I think if they get some chip help on the left tackle side, I think they're fine. They're going to use play action here. And play action, he has Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper spoke very well of Flacco this week. And I think Flacco understands, if I get the ball to Cooper, good things happen. And they have literally nobody to hang with Cooper. So I do think 4,600. Look, if all goes well in this game and the Rams put up some points, Flacco could throw for 220 and 2 touchdowns. Will he? Can't guarantee. That's why he's GPP, but it's your punt play. And then running backs, it's the chalk of the week. Everybody knows this, but I got to lay it out there because I'd be an idiot if I didn't throw it out there. Zach Moss is priced at 4,600. And that's because Jonathan Taylor's injury didn't pop till Monday. So at 4,600, you just take the chalk. Zach Moss between 17.9 and 33.5 PPR points in 4 of the 5 games he played before Taylor stepped in. He didn't have a cupcake opponent in that entire stretch. Like I said, Tennessee is not the run defense they were last year. Moss gets it done as a receiver, a runner. He finds a way to get it done. But at 4,600, you can't. It's a free square. Take it. Don't cry about it. Just take it, and he'll be fine. Kyren Williams, yeah, I know. He had the huge game last week. 7,200 in that same game against Cleveland. Now, Kyren Williams had at least 21.8 PPR points at 4 of his last 6. Cleveland, you want to run against them. You don't want to pass against them. You don't. Matthew Stafford is very hypersensitive to pressure. He can fold quickly under pressure, and they're going to bring a lot of pressure. So getting the ball to Williams as a runner and a receiver, that's the way to keep Matthew Stafford upright in this game, because if it becomes a pass-heavy script, Stafford may not make it through the game. So Kyren Williams is a strong play there. Ramondre Stevenson, 6,000 against the Chargers. Now, Stevenson quietly, after a really rough start to the season, 100 scrimmage yards in his last 3 games. Now, I've noticed that offensive line that I criticized earlier in the year, the run blocking has gotten significantly better. And that's common with Bill Belichick teams. We see over the course of a season, there are parts of the team, it used to be the defense, but we've seen it. Their offensive lines galvanize over the course of the season, repetition, practice. They've gotten better. And so now they're going to have to go with Bailey Zappi at quarterback. That's the expectation. No official start, but he's had the starting reps all week. They got to go run heavy, and they're playing the Chargers. The Chargers, better than last year, 4.1 yards per carry. Last year, they were way over 5, but they give up a lot of receiving production to running back. So Stevens is that two-way back, and he's only 6,000. So he's going to get significant work as usual. Now, Devin Singletary, 5,900 against Denver. People look at the box score last week and say, okay, well, he was back in a split with Dameon Pierce. It's not as much as it looks. Singletary played 82% of the snaps in that game. Pierce got some touches. But the last time we saw Singletary against 2 cupcake opponents, and that was not last week, he shredded them for over 100 yards. Well, Denver is a cupcake on the ground. They're good against the pass now, but they allow the most rush yards in the NFL and over 1 running back touchdown a game, 5.77 yards per carry. I know some of that's influenced by the Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert game earlier in the season, but they have been a team to attack on the ground. Finally, Najee Harris is only 5,200, and I know Jalen Warren's a big part of it, but Harris, He gets solid work every week. He's had between 15.6 and 18.6 PPR points in 4 of his last 6, and he only had 1 above average matchup in those. It's been a fairly rough schedule. He gets Arizona. It's the second worst run defense in the league, 4.5 yards a carry. They give a touchdown and a half, and Pittsburgh should have a lead in this game, so Harris should get some second half work here. So I like them. All right, John, let's get to another winning pick here. John, we were excited before the season about this Monday night game, the Bengals and the Jaguars. This was looking before again, in the preseason, this looked like it could have been an AFC championship preview. If all things worked, we wanted Trevor Lawrence to take that next step. That's kind of been shaky. Bengals, obviously no Joe Burrow. They will get T. Higgins back. -9 right now for the Jaguars. How do you break this game down?
Well, this is a very interesting game. That's why I wanted to put it on the show, because it impacts my my decision making for this, the eliminator, and I'm still in 2 of those. My strategy with the eliminator, Jim, is to try to get to week 16 and use the Eagles then. I'm obviously not going to use them this week against the 49ers. I may not even use them until they would play the Giants, or until I'm knocked out or the thing is won. But I had Jacksonville on my radar 2 weeks ago in this matchup, and now I'm having second thoughts. It's crazy to think that, because, I mean, how in the world would Jacksonville lose this game? But then the numbers come out, and it tells me I should be cautious here to think. And after all, last week, Jim, I think I used the Chiefs, thinking that that'll get me into this
Same
week.
here.
A lock, and all of a sudden I look at the scoreboard and it's 14-zip Las Vegas. And I'm like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't be eliminated in this fashion, in such a horrific manner. So in this game with Jacksonville, which is taking place on Monday, the line for this game at the Circa before the season started made Cincinnati a 1-point favorite over Jacksonville. It's now up to 9. And I learned this by doing the Circa Millions contest, that when you have a movement of more than 7 points from the benchmark line that the Circa puts out to the game time, it's a contrarian opportunity that hits about 67% of the time. And it's given me some really new insights and winners most of the time for the clients too. So that's the reason I'm a little cautious here. I mean, granted, a 9-point favorite in the NFL doesn't lose all that often, but they do. And that's what's giving me concern here. There's a system here, too, that supports Cincinnati. That's a pretty good one here. Bet on road underdogs of 3.5 to 10 points. And they're after 2 consecutive games in which they committed 1 or fewer turnovers, which Cincinnati has done. And they are facing a team that forced no turnovers in their previous game, which is Jacksonville. That set of parameters has gone 47-15 against the number for 74% winning bets over the last 10 years. So when you say that, and I say it out loud, how in the world could I not be a little cautious here with Jacksonville? Because they really haven't been the juggernaut that everybody thought. Granted, their record is outstanding. They're going to be the divisional winner. They're going to be in the playoffs. But are they a team that you can trust against a Cincinnati Bengals team that really has nothing to lose? Jake Browning's under center for the Bengals this week, and I mean, who's to say that they can't put it together? We're talking about pro athletes, and I think people forget that fact. The starter goes out and the season's over, much like Florida State is in a situation now. That kid that's playing, if I can, segue into college football for a second, that kid is a 4-star recruit that's going to be under center tonight. He's a true freshman. And do you think he's, scared to play tonight? Of course not. He wants to make a name for himself. And so does Jake Browning, and I think this opportunity over Cincinnati is a very good one, getting the 9 points. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I don't know what I'm going to do with the eliminator. At least I have 24 hours yet to wait.
For what it's worth, I did take Kansas City. I was in 2 eliminators. I got bounced in one 2 weeks ago. Idiot. I'm still surviving the other. I am going to Jacksonville eliminator. I love your call on the +9 with the Bengals, but the Jaguars winning this game, there's two things I noticed. First thing is I personally believe, and I can't quantify it, that Doug Peterson took over elements of the offense in the last 2 weeks, because we've seen a change in how they're using Calvin Ridley. It's been a massive difference. It's unlocked the offense. Now they can't unlock their bad run game because their offensive line can't block,
Right.
but they've unlocked the passing game, and getting Zay Jones back is helpful. So like you said, I like the idea of taking the points, but I think the Jaguars, now that Press Taylor, I don't think is heavily involved. His fingerprints are less on the offense, and the Bengals are horrible on defense. Can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They can't stop tight ends. Lou Anarumo just can't pull strings because his players are not playing well. So love your call on the bet, but I think for the eliminator, Jaguars at home, they have to keep winning. It's a big game for them. So I think there's no letdown spot here. And so John recommends wisely take the points, but for the eliminator, personally, I think you're safe with the Jaguars. My opinion.
I think I am too. I just a little leery of it, because we saw what happened when Dallas went out to Arizona in week 2.
Yes.
They were
100%.
double-digit favorite and lost, and that wiped out quite a few of the crowd in the eliminator contest. So I'm just trying to avoid the landmine, so to speak.
Right, because we talk about it all the time, the subliminal switch. Oh, we don't have Joe Burrow. But I still think Jamar Chase being out there and T. Higgins being out there now, I think that subliminal switch doesn't quite get shut off the same way, because I think there's a fear factor of those receivers. So hopefully, knock on something, that pans out. John, again, recommends taking the points in that game. All right, wide receiver DFS, Tyreek Hill, 9,600 against Washington. If we're going with Tua, we got to run it back with Tyreek Hill. And the problem is, obviously, nobody has the speed to deal with Hill. But again, I mentioned earlier, the lack of the pass rush after the trades that Washington made. Hill will have time to set up the routes that he needs, and we don't need to go further. He's 9,600. But yeah, if you're taking Tua, then put him in with Tyreek Hill. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 8,500 at the Saints. The Saints have been dicey against the middle of the field, and you could get them easily. Well, obviously, we know that Jared Goff will lean on St. Brown when the matchup is favorable. So 8,500 is expensive, but he should have an opportunity to go easily over 100 yards. Great chance of scoring. Very safe, solid play. If you're going to take that hold your nose bet and the GPP on Joe Flacco, then you have to go back with Amari Cooper, because I don't think it's going to be him throwing to David Njoku a ton. Flacco does have a big arm. He may not be the quarterback he was, but if you're going to go that route, then you got to go with Cooper, who's only 5,700. So you could, if you hit and you get enough out of Flacco and Cooper in non-Dorian Thompson-Robinson games, he's mostly 90 yards plus in most games. He's been that good this year. And so if that pans out, then you got money to spend everywhere else, and you can make a name for yourself in the GPP hierarchy. But again, GPP only, it's risky. Josh Downs, 5,100 at Tennessee. Look, I like Michael Pittman in this game, but Pittman is proportionately priced. Josh Downs, you can get to Tennessee with downfield passing. And again, we said earlier, they're a pass funnel D. If you're going to go with Gardner Minshew, I think you go with Downs, not Pittman. You save the money on both. You spend money elsewhere. But Downs has had many downfield games. He's another week removed from that knee being an issue. And I do think the big plays hit in this game, one or two of them. Curtis Samuel, 4,100 against Miami. Vic Fangio's defense, very predictable what they do. They're able to stop the run. They send a zone out to stop the big plays. They give you underneath stuff. You can always have underneath stuff against Fangio defenses. Curtis Samuel, last week, I believe he had 100 yards. When he's been given those games where the underneath stuff is there, they've taken it. So at 4,100, I think he's a great play. Jalen Guyton, I'm going 4 weeks ago. I went with him. He hit. I stayed away from him the next 2 weeks. He got hurt one of them. I'm back to him this week. 3,300 in New England. Now, the Patriots, we know this. They have no pass rush. Since they lost, oh, man, I can't think of number 9. I can't think of his name. They lost their best pass rusher. He's with the Ravens. Sorry, I don't think of his name right now. But they lost him, and that whole pass rush has gone south. They play 44% man, but the coverage has been bad. And when you're playing man that heavily and you don't have a pass rush, Justin Herbert's going to get downfield shots this week. That's Jalen Guyton is their deep threat right now, and they will be able to get him the ball downfield once or twice. So I think he had 3,300, great punt play. Another punt play, 3,300. Jonathan Mingo against Tampa Bay. He was on the injury report early in the week. They took him off the injury report. He's fine now. He's seen 6 or 7 targets in 3 straight games. Now, he hadn't done a lot productivity-wise, but last week he got 4 for 60. Now, Tampa Bay, very, very big struggles in the secondary. Jamel Dean is out again. Carlton Davis, the other corner, is struggling this year. He's been hurt on and off, just has not put anything together. They do blitz, but they haven't gotten home a lot. And I do think, look, I know that offensive coordinator was calling plays earlier in the year, and he's going to go back to calling plays with Frank Reich fired. But I do think they're going to make a focus on getting Mingo a little more involved, because I think they're building for next year right now. I think they kind of know that. Tight end. So if there's any 49er in a GPP, because like I said, we have no idea, because they can use any of those weapons and they all could be successful. But if you want them in the GPP and you want to go with Purdy with one of them, I'm thinking George Kittle. The most vulnerable place in the Eagles defense in the middle. That's the most vulnerable spot. And Kittle 6,200. And we know what Kittle is. If they decide to use him to block, he's not going to have a game. But this is one of those games where he could go for 130 and 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns. That's in the range of possibilities. That's why he's a GPP play. Taysom Hill is 5,200 against Detroit. They have wide receiver injuries. Chris Olave, we're going to see if he gets cleared from the concussion. A lot of players haven't. A couple have on a 1-week thing. Rashid Shaheed is down. They're down weapons. And Derek Carr is not playing well. Now, they're at home, which helps them. But I think with him not playing well, I think they're going to need Taysom Hill, because they still can win their division. I think this is a game where they're going to need Taysom Hill more than usual. It's a bit of a narrative, but Carr's been struggling, and I think Hill gives them something of a spark in the offense. Pat Freiermuth is GPP only. He's 4,300 against Arizona. So Faulkner becomes one of the 2 offensive coordinators now that Matt Canada's gone. All year, and here's my stupid point of the week about Matt Canada. Matt Canada thought he was smart. I'm going to run play action and throw the ball. When you run play action, the linebackers bite down, and the play action means you throw the ball over the vacated spot where the linebackers are. Well, Matt Canada, in his infinite wisdom, would run play action, and he would throw to the outside. Well, guess what? The corners weren't biting on your run. They were playing pass defense. He would throw the ball to where the defenders didn't change their game. Moron. Anyway, sorry, shouldn't have said that. That was bad. But first week, he's out. Oh, guess what? Play action. Oh, my gosh. Pat Freiermuth, middle of the field. He's open because of play action. Well, they used him. He went over 100 yards. He's GPP because we don't know if it's a one-game anomaly, if they completely fixed it, but definitely something going there. It's a great matchup, and Arizona's bad against a tight end. Finally, Logan Thomas, 3,600 against Miami. We said earlier, Curtis Samuel in the middle of the field. Well, Logan Thomas also in the middle of the field. And Miami has given up a lot of receptions to tight ends. Logan Thomas has 4 to 6 receptions in the majority of his last 7 or so games. And so he is going to be active in the middle at 3,600. He's a nice play there. A couple quick defenses. The Jets, 3,500 against Atlanta. Desmond Ritter's at quarterback. When Desmond Ritter's on the road, he's way worse than at home. Don't need to say more. And then the Saints, 2,700 against Detroit. If you just need to save money, I don't have a real good cheap one. If you're just looking to save a little money, the Saints do play better at home. Defense plays a lot better at home. Jared Goff doesn't always play as well on the road. I said I like Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Jared Goff's been making mistakes lately, and so you could continue to roll on that. John, we have one more winner we're going to go over today. John Ryan's going to talk. We talked about the Commanders-Dolphins game. I talked about some GPP plays in there. I had to get that out of my mouth correctly. John, can you break this game down? You like the over and under on this game?
I do. I think this game is too good to be true, but I do like it. The numbers support it. It's betting the over in the Miami Dolphins Washington Commanders game. It's going to be in Washington. I don't care if they play this on the moon. Miami's going to score a ton of points in this matchup, no matter what. And I do mean that seriously. They rank number 2, as you know, Jim, 30.8 points per game. And guess where the Washington defense ranks? Dead last, 29.2 allowed. I could go on and on with how lopsided that offense versus defense matchup is. Just take my word for it that Washington is the worst defensive team in the land. They're dead last in a very important metric in my models, points per play. They're allowing 0.459 points per play. That means they're almost allowing half a point on every play the opponent runs. It's unbelievably bad. Guess who's number 1 offensively in points per play?
I'm going to guess Miami.
It's very good, Jim. That's excellent.
I'm learning.
0.491 points per play, which means they're scoring half a point on every play so far this season. So if you put those two together, this could be a game where Miami puts up 50 some points. That's the potential here. And the total is 49.5. I do like the team total on both teams. That's an alternative way to play this.
Just going to ask you that.
Yeah, you could take Washington over. That total is going to be somewhere around 20.5 points. And Miami's total is probably going to be 30.5, maybe 31.5, depending on how much leeway the books want to have there. But times that Miami has scored 28 or more points, they're on a 10-1 over streak when scoring 28 or more. They're 9-1 to the over when they're averaging 7 or more yards per play in games played over the last 3 seasons. So I think it's, my model says it's about an 87% probability they score 28 points tomorrow. And if they do, then that the over is very, very high probability to cash.
I love that. So again, John Ryan every Saturday giving you winning picks. John's going to tell you now where you could find him and his work. John, go right ahead.
Thanks, Jim. The predictiveplaybook.com is the website that I run. I also write college football and NFL and baseball and hopefully some more for RotoWire.com. So those are the 2 centralized spots that I am on right now. And you can also get me on the X at John Ryan Sports and #1. Send me a direct message. In fact, I have a 10-unit play going today and I'm in a good mood. So send me a message on the X and I'll give that 10-unit max play to you absolutely free.
And again, you're sending that message on the X at John Ryan Sports 1, #1 on the end of that. A couple quick questions in the chat. Sean H is asking, who can you try to get for Charbonnet and Jaden Reed? Need a running back for next week. Sean, that's a really impossible answer because league sizes. If you want to give me some options, I'll tell you this, look at your opponent's rosters and just make an offer. Somebody's going to need a running back. And there's really no player you could specifically target. And with Ken Walker coming back next week, I think Charbonnet's value goes down. Jaden Reed is pretty high value right now. So, but you really just look at your opponent's rosters. Somebody who's in the playoff hunt and might be able to use those players. That might be the best way to go. And then Isaac likes the idea of Taysom Hill. It's a boom play. All right, everybody. Thank you. If you need start sit questions answered, I am answering them on the RotoWire X currently as soon as this is over for the next hour. Or if you want them answered live, you'll go on the RotoWire live stream on YouTube that is pinned to my X profile at Jim Coventry NFL. That'll be Sunday from 11 a.m. Eastern until close to kickoff. All right, for John Ryan, I am Jim Coventry. Have a great day, everyone.